She damaged her career. She even conspired with Anne's own mother to have her institutionalized.
She said it herself, out loud, on her own podcast.
You spoken to Anne Heche at all since her accident?
Have not.
Do you want to...
We're not in touch with each other, so I wouldn't.
That's the woman Anne Heche said manipulated her for years. And that's all she had to say when her former girlfriend was fighting for her life.
Quite friendly with that P. Diddy bloke, wasn't she?
Well, this is why I say release the Diddy file.
And now a voicemail has surfaced, a recording Anne Heche allegedly left in the final hours before her crash. A message so loaded, so specific, so dangerous that the people closest to her went dead silent the moment it came to light. What was Anne about to expose? And why does every trail lead back to the same name? Let's go back to August 5th, 2022, because this story doesn't start with a crash. It starts with a woman who woke up that morning and went about her day like she knew exactly what she was doing. At around 10 a.m., Anne Heche walked into a hair store called Glass Hair in Los Angeles. She bought a neon red wig, one that wasn't even cut or styled yet. She asked to buy it off the display. She bought shampoo, she bought conditioner, normal errands, nothing unusual.
She looked up top and said, "Hey, can I buy that red wig?" I said, "Sure." So I went up to grab it for her. I told her, I said, "It's not cut or styled." She says, "No worries, I want it anyway."
Did she appear in any way inebriated or drunk or impaired?
She did not. She wasn't slurring her words. She had bright, beautiful blue eyes.
So let's be very clear about what the evidence actually says. The last person to interact with Anne Heche before her car crash described her as sober, polite, kind, and coherent. Not the narrative the media pushed, not the narrative that conveniently let everyone look away. 30 minutes later, Anne's car appeared briefly near a storage facility. There was some kind of minor incident. A man was filmed screaming at her, telling her to get out of her vehicle.
No, out of the car. Out of the car.
She didn't comply, she sped off, and 30 minutes after that, she was dead. Now here's what nobody is connecting. Between the hair store and that crash, Anne allegedly placed a voicemail, a recorded message, and according to multiple sources that have surfaced in the 2 years since her death, that voicemail was not a goodbye. It was a warning. It named names, it described what she had uncovered, and it pointed directly at Ellen DeGeneres. We're going to get to what was allegedly in that voicemail, but first, you need to understand exactly what Anne was sitting on, because this wasn't gossip, this wasn't a grudge, this was a documentary. By the time 2022 rolled around, Anne Heche had been on a collision course with Ellen DeGeneres for over a year. In June of 2021, Anne appeared on her own podcast, her own platform, her own words, and she didn't hold back. She said Ellen had manipulated her throughout their relationship. She said Ellen damaged her career on purpose. She said Ellen conspired with her own mother, to have Anne institutionalized. This wasn't a rumor someone whispered on a gossip blog. This was Anne Heche speaking directly into a microphone, placing the blame at Ellen's feet with zero ambiguity. And here's what's important. Anne wasn't scared. She was angry. There's a difference. Fear makes people go quiet. Anger makes people dig deeper. And that's exactly what Anne did. From late 2021 through the first half of 2022, Anne was reportedly deep in production on a documentary about Hollywood's inner circle, about the access these people had, about the parties, the networks, the connections to powerful men who had been using that access for decades. And one of the names she kept circling back to was Jeffrey Epstein. Now, if you think that sounds like a reach, consider what we already know on the public record. Multiple producers from Ellen's show were accused of inappropriate behavior toward younger employees. Executive producer Kevin Lehman was specifically named in connection with misconduct at company events, behavior that insiders said was treated as untouchable for years. Ellen herself was accused of knowing and doing nothing until public pressure made that position untenable.
Rumors Ellen was far from nice were out there for years.
I felt that it was in the hands of the people who needed to speak their truth.
I hadn't spoken to Ellen in years, and I feel that the stories that need to be listened to are being told.
And then there's the detail that online investigators have latched onto that nobody in the mainstream press will touch. Ellen's set, the Ellen DeGeneres set, was designed in blue and white. Epstein's infamous properties, his temple on Little St. James, his Manhattan townhouse, also blue and white. Now, you can call that a coincidence, you can call it nothing, but when you're building a documentary about connections between Hollywood's elite and Epstein's network, you start looking for patterns, and Anne Heche was looking. But here's where the story takes a turn that nobody expected, because Anne wasn't the only person in Ellen's inner circle who knew things. There was another person, someone much closer to Ellen, someone who had been by her side for almost a decade, someone who just 4 months after Anne's crash would also be dead. His name was Stephen Twitch Boss. If you don't know Twitch's story, and you need to because it is the missing piece of everything we're about to tell you, here it is. Twitch Boss was the executive producer and in-house DJ of The Ellen DeGeneres Show for nearly 8 years. He was universally beloved. Everyone who worked with him described the same thing: a man who lit up the room, a man who was warm and present and genuinely joyful.
Over a decade ago, I met someone who changed my life and our show. And I'm talking about you, Twitch. Come here.
On December 13th, 2022, just 4 months after Anne Heche died in that car crash, it was announced that Twitch had taken his own life at a motel a single mile from his home. He was 40.
Which was last seen in this Instagram video he shared on December 11th, doing what he and she were known best for, dancing. Just 2 days later, he was found dead in a motel room in Los Angeles.
Now here's where it gets complicated, because publicly, this was framed as a suicide by a man dealing with private struggles. And in our culture, when someone takes their life, we're conditioned to look inward, to ask what personal pain they were carrying. And we should. Mental health is real. Grief is real. But Twitch left a note, and according to multiple sources that have leaked fragments of that note online, it wasn't just about personal pain. It was about what he had seen. It was about the parties. It was about powerful people. It was about names he had never expected to encounter in those rooms. And it was about the pressure, the sustained, relentless pressure that had been applied to him to stay silent about everything he witnessed.
He told Allison that he had been pressured into silence, that people close to him, even Ellen, were not who they claimed to be.
But there's more, because Twitch allegedly didn't just leave a written note. He allegedly left a voice recording, a voice note, directed at Ellen. And according to people who claim to have heard it or seen transcripts of it, that voice note revealed everything. The parties, the names, the things he saw, the things he was warned never to repeat. Sound familiar? A voice recording, named names, directed directly at Ellen, right before a mysterious death. Anne Heche allegedly left a voicemail. Twitch allegedly left a voice note. 2 people, 2 recordings, 2 deaths, 4 months apart. So let's talk about what Anne's voicemail allegedly contained, because this is the part that has been circulating in online spaces for a year, and it's the part that the mainstream press has completely refused to touch. According to sources that have surfaced on various platforms, Anne Heche placed a recorded message in the hours before her crash. In that recording, she allegedly named Ellen DeGeneres directly. She allegedly described specific conversations she had had. Conversations about parties, about access, about powerful men in Hollywood who had used Ellen's platform and Ellen's connections to operate with total impunity. Now, and this is critical, none of this has been officially verified. There is no publicly released recording. Law enforcement has not confirmed the existence of any such voicemail. But here is what we can verify: the timing. Anne published her accusations against Ellen on her podcast in June of 2021. She was allegedly deep in production on a documentary by early 2022. She died on August 5th, 2022. And here's the detail that breaks people when they really look at it. There were no skid marks on a residential street where she was allegedly traveling between 70 and 90 miles per hour. There were no skid marks. If you are in control of a vehicle and you want to stop, you brake. Braking leaves marks. The absence of skid marks doesn't prove the car was controlled remotely, but it is consistent with a car that had no human being trying to stop it. And then the response: 56 firefighters for a single car fire and a house fire. Firefighters who took nearly 40 minutes to extract a conscious, responsive woman from a vehicle. A woman who was then strapped into a white cloth, filmed while still alive, in a manner that witnesses and online investigators said looked less like medical extraction and more like something else entirely.
Sky Fox video shows Heche pop up disoriented while she's wrapped in a white cloth following this crash.
And then she never woke up. A woman described as sober, bright-eyed, and fully coherent at 10 a.m. was declared brain dead within a week. Her family removed life support, her organs were donated per her wishes, and the official story closed the book. But Anne's voicemail, if it exists, did not close with her. Here is what we know about Ellen DeGeneres, independent of any rumor or theory. We know that her show collapsed under a wave of abuse allegations in 2020. We know that producers from her show were credibly accused of inappropriate behavior. We know that Ellen used Twitch, used his warm, beloved presence to rehabilitate her image during that scandal. And then there's the departure. In 2024, right after federal investigators began dismantling Diddy's empire, after his Miami mansion was raided, after the allegations went from whisper to headline, Ellen DeGeneres announced she was leaving the United States permanently. She changed her hair, she moved to rural England, she sold her Montecito estate, and she did all of it as quietly as possible, with no major public statement about why. Now, officially, Ellen's people said it was about Trump's re-election. She was a vocal critic. The move made sense in that framing. But here's what people online will not let go of. The timing of Ellen's departure lined up not with the election, but with Diddy's arrest, with the federal investigation opening up, with the cascade of names that started falling out of Diddy's orbit.
Maybe she's hightailing out of there before all that is thrown at her as well. But what a bunch of hypocrites. She was quite friendly with that P. Diddy bloke, wasn't she?
Well, this is why I say release the Diddy file.
And then consider this. The rumors swirling online aren't just about Ellen's proximity to Diddy. They're about her proximity to the same kind of behavior. The freak-offs, the pressure, the parties where powerful people did things they needed other people to stay silent about. And the people who were in those rooms, the people who saw things, have a pattern of ending up in headlines for all the wrong reasons. Kat Perkoff, car crash, the car split in half, no skid marks. Leslie Jordan, medical emergency behind the wheel. Twitch boss, found dead in a motel room 4 months after Anne Heche. And Anne Heche herself, no skid marks, 56 firefighters, wrapped in a cloth while still conscious. 4 people connected to Ellen DeGeneres. 4 deaths or near deaths under circumstances that raised questions. You can call it coincidence. Statistics allow for coincidence. But the online community, the people who have spent hundreds of hours going through this, they are not calling it coincidence anymore. And what makes the Twitch and Anne connection so uniquely disturbing is the voicemail parallel. Both of them allegedly left audio recordings in their final days. Both recordings allegedly named names. Both recordings have since either disappeared, been suppressed, or remain in private hands with no public release. Twitch's voice note, allegedly directed at Ellen, has been referenced in online forums, in leaked DMs, by people who claim Twitch's widow, Allison, still has a copy. Some say it was taken, some say it was deleted. Nobody in any official capacity has confirmed or denied its existence. And Anne's voicemail, the one she allegedly placed on the morning of August 5th before everything went wrong, no official confirmation, no release, no acknowledgement from Ellen, no acknowledgement from law enforcement, just silence. The kind of silence that in Hollywood has historically meant only one thing. Here's where we have to zoom out, because this story isn't just about Anne and Ellen. It's about a system. When Diddy's world started coming apart, when the freak-off allegations went public, when the lawsuits started multiplying, when the FBI walked into his Miami mansion and his Los Angeles property on the same morning, something happened in Hollywood. People started making moves, quiet moves, strategic moves. And let's not forget what Diddy's trial revealed about how these systems work. Witnesses were pressured. People who spoke out found themselves on the receiving end of threats, physical violence, and coordinated intimidation campaigns.
But he was like, yo, if y'all see Gene, I'm telling y'all, man, somebody better punch him in the face. Somebody better do something to him, man.
That's not a conspiracy theory. That's testimony. That's a court record. And if that's how Diddy's world operated, and we now know it did, then why would we assume the networks adjacent to Diddy operated any differently? Ellen was adjacent to Diddy. That is documented. She attended his events. They moved in the same circles. They shared the same Hollywood real estate of access and influence. And the people in that world, the ones who got too close, who saw too much, who started talking, they have a pattern of disappearing from the narrative at very convenient times. Jamie Foxx saw something at a Diddy party. He tried to distance himself, and in 2023, right as the FBI was circling Diddy, Jamie Foxx collapsed with a mysterious brain bleed and stroke, and then vanished from public life for nearly a year.
I was fighting for my life, but I'm here in front of you.
The pattern is everywhere once you see it, and Anne Heche saw it. She was documenting it. She was naming it. She picked up the phone and recorded it, and then she got in her car. We want to be direct with you. Anne Heche's death was ruled an accident. There is no official evidence of foul play. No law enforcement agency has publicly named Ellen DeGeneres in connection with Anne's death. No voicemail has been officially released. No documentary has surfaced. But here is what is also true. Anne was making one. The timing of her death is strange. The circumstances of that crash are strange. The people connected to Ellen who have died under unusual circumstances form a pattern that is hard to dismiss once you lay it out chronologically. And Ellen's abrupt departure from the United States, right as the investigation into her alleged associate Diddy began consuming Hollywood, is a fact, not a theory. A fact. Anne Heche is gone. Twitch is gone. Their recordings, if they exist, are silent. And Ellen is sitting in a farmhouse in rural England, brunette now, starting fresh, hoping the world moves on. But the internet doesn't move on. That's the one thing Hollywood keeps underestimating. The timeline lives online, the clips live online, the questions live online. And as Diddy's sentencing approaches, as October draws closer, as more names from those party lists threaten to become public, the question isn't whether Anne's voicemail matters. The question is whether anyone with the power to release it will.
The best thing that we can do is to laugh and hug each other, and play games and dance and sing.
She said honor him by dancing, but maybe the best way to honor Anne Heche and Twitch and every person who knew something and paid for it is to keep asking questions, loud ones, the kind that can't be wrapped in white cloth and covered in flames. We'll be watching.